Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. This podcast is going to walk you through my journey into mediumship and how I came to realize that I could communicate with souls that have passed over. My adventure started just over a year ago when unusual situations started happening to me. It wasn't until I really started to pay attention to them that it all started to come together. I wrote down everything that I was experiencing this past year in a little black book, and this podcast is going to be a recap of all of those memories leading up to where I am today in my mediumship journey. I will be releasing new episodes every Tuesday, and I recommend listening to the podcast in order, starting with episode 1, as my story will unfold more week by week. If you would like to stay connected with me, follow me on Instagram at mediuminthemiddle. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 13. We're on episode 13. I can't believe it. I get really excited the more episodes that are released because that means that we are closer and closer to where I am today and telling you all the cool things that happened like yesterday that I'm going to have to wait months to release in a podcast episode. So I'm getting really excited that we are getting caught up, kind of. So in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about house clearings, as the title of this podcast suggests. So before I left Ontario, I did a few house clearings for friends, and then when people found out about it, other people wanted some. So I have a few interesting stories, and today I'm going to talk about 3 house clearings that I did. So how house clearings came to be was people would come over for personal clearings. So if they thought they had an evil eye, if they were feeling bad energy, if they had a headache, if they just had like something wrong where I wasn't doing a full Reiki session on them, I was just kind of smudging them and clearing their energy and just trying to reset them. It then became like, can you do my house? And I was like, well, I do my house. I'm not sure why I can't do other people's houses. And in Reiki, you're taught that you can Reiki rooms, you can Reiki the walls, you can add protection to anything that you need. And when spirits kind of first started bothering me, I Reiki'd my shower and my bathroom because they would bother me when my eyes were closed in the shower, and it used to scare me. And my Reiki master said, Reiki the walls of your shower and tell them that they're not allowed to scare you when they're in there. And I did, and it really helped. In episode 10, I talked about 2 sisters that came to my group reading test. So I was at one of the sisters' house who had invited me over to clear her house. She said that her daughter was waking up in the middle of the night with what she thought was night terrors, and she just wanted to do a house clearing because she just felt like it was needed. So I said, sure, no problem, I can come clear your house. She lived really close to me. So I went over and I started my process. So I always start from the door, and I like to work my way clockwise around, and I like to keep a window open, and I have my sage and a feather, and then I add Palo Santo at the end, and I Reiki all the walls and all the floors and all the ceilings, and I go around the entire house doing this. So usually I go around twice. So once I go around with sage and Reiki, and then when I'm done that, I just go and burn Palo Santo in all the rooms, and I just double check to make sure that I didn't miss anything when I was doing the first round of clearing. So right when you walk in her house, you walk right into the kitchen. So I started in the kitchen, and then you walk into the living room, and she had 2 neighbors. Obviously, everyone has 2 neighbors on the left and the right. And on the left-hand side, her wall just felt very heavy and very protected and very guarded. And I turned to her and I said, do you not like these neighbors? And she kind of laughed and she said, why do you say that? And I explained to her that I felt that the wall was heavy and it feels like there's kind of like a fence. The wall feels heavier than the other 3 walls. And she said, yeah, we don't really get along with those neighbors. It's really funny that you say that because I do feel like there's kind of a divide between us because us and all the other neighbors get along really well. So she kind of had a little chuckle. So I continue to do the house. I do all the rooms, all the walls. At the time, her youngest child was home, not the child who was having the night terrors. And it was very interesting because he was following me around into each room. And he's kind of a kid that doesn't warm up well to people, and although he's met me multiple times, he's not someone that would come sit on my lap or want to be around me. He's very much like with mom or with dad. But for the whole time, mom was in the kitchen, and he followed me around to each room, seeing what I was doing. So when I was in his room, I said, you can help me. You can wave the feather around. So I gave him the feather. And while I was doing that, I also cleansed his energy and his aura just to kind of involve him in the process. And he loved it. He had me do it for him 3 times. And I think he was only 2 at the time. So he wasn't very verbal, but he could just see the smile on his face. So that was really nice to see the kids getting involved and seeing how he reacted to it. So for the rest of the house, it was fairly normal. I didn't pick up on anything crazy. There was no spirits. It was just the one wall was heavy. I really made sure to take time in her daughter's room and her son's room to make sure that they were protected and nothing was going to be bothering them when they slept. I Reiki'd all the walls and I kind of said, I think this should help and be a lot better. She said thanks, and that was kind of it. So a few days later, her sister came over, the same sister that came to the circle test. Or when I did the group mediumship reading, she came to that. And she walked in the house and right away said to her sister, "What'd you do in here?" And she said, "Nothing." She said, "Did you get new furniture? Did you change something? Did you paint? What's different? Something's different." And she's like, "Nothing. I haven't changed anything." She says, "No, it feels lighter in here. It feels different. Like the energy, it feels really nice. Did you get a new air freshener? Are you using an essential oil? Like what's different?" And she's like, "No, nothing." And it took her a few minutes and then she said, "Oh, actually, Steph was over the other day and she cleared the house. And, she Reiki'd the walls and she told me about my neighbor and all these things." And she said, "Wow, you can really tell the difference in the energy in here. I want her to do my house. Do you think she'll do it?" She was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll ask her." So she asked me if I could clear her sister's house. And I said, "Yeah, of course. Actually, on my way back from Windsor, I'll be driving past her house because she lived on the other side of Toronto." So I said, "I'll stop at her house and I can do her house." And she was really appreciative, and she had just moved into this new house and she wanted to kind of set the energy right from the very beginning. So I went to her house one day and I did my clearing, and she kind of followed me around as well. She had a small apartment, so it didn't take too long. And I started from the door and I opened my window and I did my normal thing. So when I started, there was more energy in her apartment because she was an apartment and she shared walls with people. So when I walked in, I was in the front foyer and I said, "The person underneath you is an older person and they're sick and they don't leave their house often. And they're like this very slow energy." And then I said, "But the person on top of you is always in and out, in and out, in and out. He's home, then he's not home. He comes home for 5 minutes, then he leaves. He's home for an hour, then he's gone." I said, "His door is constantly opening and closing, opening and closing. There's like a high traffic area." And she said, "Yeah, the guy above me," she's like, "I hear his door open and close a lot because we have the same layout." As I continued to go around her house, I said, "I don't think there's anyone to the right of you." And she said, "No, that's actually a stairwell. There is no apartment to the right of me. There's only someone above and below me, and I'm actually on a corner, so there's no one to the left of me." And I said, "Oh, okay, because I'm not picking up any energy on the sides of you, just on the top and the bottom. But I will Reiki your ceiling and your floor just to make sure that like those energies aren't seeping into your place." So then as I'm in her dining area backed onto her bedroom. And there was this one spot in the wall that I kept stopping at. And I'd try to walk away from it and it'd pull me back. And I'd try to move around the room and I kept going back to this one spot. And I said, "What's here? What's in this spot?" I had my hand on the wall. And she said, "Well, that's my bedroom." And I'm like, "Okay, but what's like directly behind where my hand is right now?" She said, "That's my closet." I said, "Okay." So I go around into the bedroom and I'm trying to find the same spot that I found on the other side of the wall in the closet. And I said, "Is there anything in this closet here? Is there anything of significance? There's something in this closet that I don't like it. I don't like the energy here. It's a heavy energy. And it's right here where my hand was on the other side." And in her closet, she had some drawers and she had some hanging clothes and she had some folded clothes. And I didn't know her that well where I wanted to start going through all her clothes. And she said, "No, I can't think of anything. Like I just moved. I just purged everything. Everything is kind of only the things I keep and wear." So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go on the other side of the wall and put my hand exactly where I feel it, and I'll knock so that you can kind of dig on the closet side and see if you can find anything in the area that I'm knocking. And she said, okay. So she's on the closet side in her bedroom. I'm on the dining room side on the spot in the wall that I found. And she's looking through the area where she found kind of like the general area. It was one of the drawers. And she said, no, there's nothing in this drawer. There's nothing in this drawer. And she's digging and she's digging. And then I hear, ah. I say, what? She said, I found it. I know what it is. So I go to the bedroom side and she shows me a black shirt. And I said, okay, what about this shirt? She said, when I was moving, I went back and forth, back and forth. Do I throw this shirt away? Do I keep it? Do I get rid of it? Do I keep it? She's like, I have such a negative connection with this shirt. She's like, clearly I needed to get rid of it if it's causing you to find it in my closet. And I said, okay, like what happened with this shirt? And it was just a shirt that she had worn on a first date with this guy that was connected to it. And the date ended up not going well, but it was like kind of dragged on. And there was this whole story with it. And she was saying about how she can't wear the shirt anymore. And it just reminds her of this guy and what happened between them. And she meant to get rid of it, but she really likes the shirt. And I said, okay, I have to take the shirt out of your apartment. And she said, yep, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what is. She said, I meant to get rid of it when I was moving, but I just couldn't. But now you take the shirt, donate it, wear it. I don't care, but I need it out of my apartment. And I said, okay, perfect. Glad we found the item. And then when I went back to check the wall, I felt a lot better with the energy that was there. I put the shirt in my bag and I finished up. And I ended up taking the shirt with me just to get it out of her apartment so that when I left, the house was fully cleared, the walls were Reiki'd, and everything felt kind of back in order. So the last story that I'm going to tell you on this episode is a house clearing that I did for my friend Tara. And Tara has had many features in this podcast with everything that has happened with her family. She was the story from episode 4 when I was frightened in her washroom, and then again for episode 9, Josh, and there is a few more episodes to come. She's been one of the lucky few to have 5 people close to her been channeled through me. I won't say more, I will just say there are more episodes to come. So because I've had so many experiences with Tara and her family, she asked me to come do a clearing at her house. She said that they know that someone died in the house many, many years ago. Her house is very old, and she was just wondering if I could help clear the energy. So she had a bigger house, so it took me a lot longer, and I was carrying a big piece of selenite in my hand, and Tara and her mom kind of followed me through the whole house. It was really cute. I had them both holding crystals behind me because I had my sage and my feather and all these things. So we were kind of moving through the house, and then I stop at one spot and I kind of start to feel choked. And I'm clearing my throat, having a hard time breathing. And they both noticed that I stopped. And they said, why are you stopping here? And I was like, I don't know. I don't feel right in this one little spot here. And they said, what do you feel? I'm like, I feel like I'm choked. I feel like I'm getting choked. And they said, okay, well, there was someone that died here. And I was like, well, did they commit suicide? And they said, well, that's kind of the story. And I said, well, did they hang themselves? And they said, we're not sure. And then they said, the fact that you're stopping at this exact spot is very weird. I was stopping near a doorway by a window, and they said that their dog often sits at the window and barks at it as if there's someone there. But there's no one there, and he's barking at the window. So I said, okay, I'll kind of clear this area. I opened the window. I pushed out the energy, really worked on it. And I said, okay, I feel better with this space. Let's move on. So we continued moving through her house, her mom's bedroom, fine, her bedroom, fine. And then we get to this other bedroom. And I said, whose bedroom is this? She says, it's my grandma's room when she stays with us. And I said, I'm like, your grandpa watches her through the window. This window, he sits out there and he watches her through the window. And she said, it's so interesting that you say that because Graham will just sit here and just stare out the window for what seems like hours, and we don't know what she's ever looking at. And I said, yeah, I don't know if she sees him, but her husband, who passed away when they were very young, who was mentioned in episode 4, he is sitting outside kind of watching her. That's kind of his spot where he sits and looks. She's like, wow, that's really comforting to know because she's always in here. And I said, is one of his sweaters in here? Like, I feel like a sweater that he used to own, like a big fuzzy sweater, is in this room. And she's like, I don't know if Graham has any of his clothes still. And I don't know if it would be in this room. She's like, we need to ask her. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I feel like one of his sweaters is still here, or it's in the room or something, but he's kind of referencing the sweater that he used to wear and that it's here. They said, oh, okay, we're going to have to ask Graham. So I finished off the house, and there's a few weird other things. They had some feelings in their office, but I didn't pick up on anything. I just did my clearing and raking the walls and pushing any heavy energy out the windows. And after that, they felt a lot better. They said they felt kind of calmer in the space. There was just a more zen-like state. And because they both were following me around for the whole house, they were kind of like standing in their foyer. They said to me, I kind of feel like I just had an hour-long meditation, like I'm just woke up from yoga or something. And I was like, yeah, it's very calming. And you were also getting cleared as well as the entire house was. So you'll feel very calm and you'll have a nice sleep tonight as well. So a few days later, my friend Tara messages me and she says, hey, Steph. She said, you know how I told you that the dog always sat in that one spot and barked? She's like, he hasn't done it in a few days. Isn't that weird? And I said, oh, that's like really good. That must mean that the energy was actually cleared if the dog isn't even picking up on it anymore. So that was a super cool thing. And I followed up with her like a week later being like, hey, is the dog barking in that spot anymore? And she was like, no, isn't that the craziest thing? So those are my 3 experiences that I had with clearing houses for my friends before I moved across the country. And after these things happened, I kind of got on the road and I was moving across the country, moving jobs. Everything was kind of shifting and changing, moving homes. And when I first moved to Banff, everything kind of stopped. For a while, I thought I kind of lost it. And I didn't know what was happening. I thought maybe I lost my abilities. And at home, when it was happening constantly, almost daily, I had all these stories in my little black book that happened from just a few weeks. In Banff, it was barely happening. I couldn't pick up on anything. I wasn't talking to anyone that had passed away. No souls were coming through. And it wasn't until I did my Reiki Master's course. About 3 weeks after moving to Banff, I did a Reiki Master's course. And I started to ask questions, being like, why isn't this happening anymore? It was happening all the time. Am I losing it? What's going on? Like, I don't want to lose this gift. I'm starting to really like it. I'm starting to really enjoy it. And it was also at this time that Joe and I had broken up. And it was kind of explained to me that when your energy is low and you're not vibing high enough to feel those high vibrations that you want to connect with, you can't pick up on it. So like when your energy is low, you can't pick up on the higher energy that you're trying to connect with. You need your energy to be high, well, good to go for you to connect with kind of the souls that you're looking to connect. And the person that I did my Reiki Masters with that time said to me, think about when you're feeling low and blue, what kind of energy you'll pick up when all that's going on. She's like, you need to be at your top to connect with those higher vibrations of what you're trying to connect with. She said, let your body heal, let your body do what it needs to do. You're not going to lose your gift, but it's just not going to bother you at a time when so many other things are going on in your life. And at this time, I had moved across the country. I quit my job. I started a new job. I moved homes. I picked up my whole life and moved across the country. There was a lot going on that I had to deal with. And to top that all off, I had just started realizing I could talk to dead people. I thought I was crazy. I was researching, am I crazy? I was reading books, reading blogs, everything I could do. And it was a really difficult time for me. And the Reiki Master said to me, of course, this isn't going to be another thing on your plate. You need to just give your body time and see what happens. When you're ready, you'll know you're ready and it'll start happening again. So don't even worry about it. So when I pick back up in the next episode, it's actually going to be a few months later because it definitely took me a while to get my energy back in check, for me to want to do this again. And I was also very scared for a long time because these past 13 episodes all happened very quickly in just August, September, October. So I needed to also process and deal with everything that was happening. So I kind of had a few months break until it really started to rev up again, and I started to notice these stories happening. It started maybe on a weekly basis, then every third day, and then it started to come as much as it was before. Thank you for listening to episode 13. I hope you enjoyed my house clearing stories. If you haven't already, please press subscribe to the podcast. Every Tuesday when I release a new episode, you will be notified, so you don't even have to remember. If you are on iTunes, please leave a rating and a review. It really helps me out in the podcast world. Thank you for listening, and I will see you all next week.